The day Alex and I decided to build our home was a day I thought would forever symbolize our love and commitment to each other. It was a chilly autumn morning when we stood on the empty lot, overlooking the tranquil lake, imagining the possibilities that lay before us. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of new beginnings, and our breaths formed little clouds as we spoke about our future. "I can see it now," Alex said, eyes sparkling with excitement. "A cozy living room right there, with a fireplace where we can gather around during winter. And over here," I pointed towards the lake, "a large window, so we can watch the sunrise together." My voice carried a dreamy quality, reflecting the bliss of the moment. We spent hours on that lot, talking, planning, and dreaming. It wasn't just a house we were building, it was our future. Every detail was meticulously thought out, from the sustainable wood flooring to the energy-efficient windows that would offer us a view of the natural beauty outside. As the years passed, our home truly became a reflection of us. The once empty lot transformed into a sanctuary filled with love, laughter, and countless memories. Our daughters, Sam and Chris, grew up in these rooms, their laughter echoing through the hallways, their milestones marking the passage of time. "Dad, look, I can touch the ceiling now," Chris would exclaim, jumping up in the living room, her fingers barely grazing the surface. "Mom, I painted this for our living room. Do you like it?" Sam's voice filled with hope and excitement as she presented us with a canvas splattered in vibrant colors. Alex and I would exchange looks, a silent acknowledgement of our shared joy and pride. This house witnessed our family's life in all its glory and complexity. It was a testament to our journey together, a place where every corner held a story, every room a cherished memory. But as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. The foundation we built our life upon started to show cracks, and the home that once symbolized our undying love became a battleground for our disillusionment and hardishes. The process of building our dream home was a journey of love and hope, but as I stood now, on the brink of losing it all, I couldn't help but wonder where it all went wrong. The home we built with dreams and aspirations was about to become a memory, a chapter in my life that was closing, leaving me to start anew on a blank page. The vibrant hues of our life together began to fade into a monochrome palette of routine and silent resentments. It was during a cold winter evening, the kind that once invited cuddles and shared dreams by the fireplace, that Alex dropped the bombshell that shattered our world. "I can't do this anymore," Alex said, the words cold, slicing through the warmth of our home like a knife through butter. The room, once filled with laughter and love, felt hollow, echoing with the weight of those words. "What do you mean? What can't you do?" My voice trembled, a mix of fear and confusion. Deep down, I sensed the gravity of the moment, but a part of me clung to a sliver of hope that it was just another hurdle we could overcome. Us. I need more. I need something different. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I've met someone else," Alex confessed, avoiding my gaze. The words rushed, as if saying them faster would lessen their impact. The world as I knew it crumbled. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined, tearing apart the very fabric of our shared existence. Our home, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a prison, each room a reminder of a love that had withered away. In the weeks that followed, our home became a silent witness to the unraveling of our marriage. Conversations were terse, limited to necessities, as if words were landmines that could detonate at the slightest provocation. "We need to talk about the house," Alex said one morning, the statement hanging in the air like a dark cloud. The financial disparity between us was glaring. Alex's success as a CEO meant they could easily afford to keep the house, while I was left grappling with the uncertainty of my future. "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't afford to buy you out." "It's not just about the money, Alex. This house, it's part of me. Our girls grew up here." "I understand, but it's just a house. We can figure out the finances. I'll make sure you're taken care of," Alex offered. But the words felt hollow. It wasn't just a house. It was the embodiment of our life together, every brick, every beam filled with memories that I wasn't ready to let go of. But the reality was inescapable. At 45, I was facing not just the end of my marriage, but the loss of my home, the foundation of my life for over 2 decades. The divorce proceedings were a blur, a painful process of dismantling the life we had built together, piece by piece. As I packed my belongings, I couldn't help but feel like I was erasing myself from a story that was no longer mine to tell. The future was a blank canvas, and I was stepping into it alone, leaving behind the home that had been my sanctuary, my paradise lost. The last day in our home dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my heart. I walked through each room, a silent farewell tour, touching the walls that had sheltered us, the floors that had borne our footsteps, and the doors that had opened to both joy and sorrow. Alex found me in the kitchen, the heart of our home, where countless meals had been prepared and shared, where laughter had resonated, and where tears had been shed in equal measure. "It's time," Alex said softly, the weight of the moment evident in their voice. "The movers will be here soon." I nodded, unable to trust my voice. My eyes swept over the kitchen one last time, lingering on the breakfast nook where Sam had declared her intention to become an astronaut and where Chris had shown us her first heartbreakingly earnest drawing. "Do you remember when the girls put on that play for us here?" I asked, a small smile breaking through the sorrow. "With the makeshift curtains and the lamp as their spotlight." Alex chuckled, the sound tinged with sadness. How could I forget? They were convinced they were Broadway bound. We sat on these very chairs, the proudest audience of two. The memory hung between us, a reminder of happier times, of a love that once seemed unbreakable. It was a bittersweet acknowledgement of what we were leaving behind. "I wish things could have been different," I whispered, finally allowing the tears to fall. "I wish we could have fixed us." Alex reached out, a hand briefly touching mine, a gesture laden with regret and a shared history that was now ending. "I do too. But maybe this is the beginning of something better for both of us. I'm truly sorry for the pain I've caused." The sound of the moving truck pulling up broke the moment, a harsh intrusion into the fragile bubble we had created. We stepped outside together, watching as our life was loaded onto the truck, piece by piece. As the truck drove away, I turned to Alex, realizing this was not just a farewell to our home, but to us. "Take care of yourself, Alex." "You too," Alex replied, their voice steady, but their eyes reflecting the turmoil within. "Goodbye, and good luck." With that, we parted ways, Alex heading towards their new life, and me towards an uncertain future. I took one last look at the empty house, our home. Now just a shell of the life it once contained. The door closed with a finality that echoed in my heart, marking the end of an era. The last day in our home was the hardest goodbye, but as I walked away, I realized it was also the first step towards healing, towards rebuilding myself from the ground up. It was time to find a new foundation, one that I could call my own. The days following my departure from our home felt like navigating through a dense fog, each step uncertain, leading me further away from my past life and towards an unknown future. It wasn't until I found myself standing in front of the quaint, somewhat dilapidated cottage that I felt the fog begin to lift, revealing a path I hadn't realized I was searching for. "This is it?" I asked the real estate agent, disbelief coloring my tone. The cottage, with its peeling paint and overgrown garden, was a far cry from the polished perfection of my previous life. "It has potential," the agent, a cheerful woman named Marcy, replied with a smile that suggested she saw something in the property that I couldn't. "It's been on the market for a while. The owner is motivated to sell, and it's within your budget." I took a deep breath, the crisp air filling my lungs, and for the first time in months, I felt a flicker of excitement. "Let's take a look inside." The interior of the cottage was as neglected as its exterior, but as we walked through each room, I began to see past the disrepair to the charm and possibilities that lay beneath. The living room, with its large stone fireplace, whispered promises of cozy winter evenings. The sunroom, bathed in natural light, offered a serene space that seemed ideal for writing, my long-neglected passion. It's going to take a lot of work, I mused aloud, more to myself than to Marcy. But think of it as a project, a way to start fresh, Marcy encouraged. You can make it your own, something you haven't had the chance to do in a long time. She was right. The thought of transforming the cottage into a mine home sparked a sense of purpose that had been missing since the divorce. It was daunting, but for the first time, I felt ready to face the challenge. I'll take it, I said, surprising even myself with the decisiveness of my decision. The weeks that followed were a blur of contractors, paint samples, and furniture shopping. Each choice, each decision, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been lost in the compromise and sacrifice of marriage. One evening, as I stood in the nearly finished kitchen, painting the last cabinet, there was a knock at the door. It was my neighbor, Tom, a kindly older gentleman who had introduced himself on my first day. "Thought you could use a break," Tom said, holding out a plate of homemade cookies. "You've been going non-stop." I smiled, touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Tom. That's very kind of you." We sat on the porch, sharing cookies and stories as the sun dipped below the horizon. Tom regaled me with tales of the neighborhood, the people, and the quirks that made it unique. In turn, I found myself opening up about my journey, the pain of the past, and the hope for the future. "You've done a remarkable job with the place," Tom observed, looking at the cottage with an appreciative eye. "It's been a long time since this old house has felt like a home." "Thanks, Tom. It feels good to put down roots again, to build something new from the ashes of the old," I replied, the truth of my words resonating deep within. As Tom left, with a promise to return for more porch conversations, I looked around at my new beginning, feeling a profound sense of peace. The cottage, once a symbol of my fear and uncertainty, had become a sanctuary, a place of healing and hope. Starting a new chapter wasn't just about changing my surroundings. It was about rediscovering myself, about learning that even in the aftermath of loss, it's possible to build a life filled with meaning, joy, and the promise of new beginnings. The newfound peace I had begun to cultivate was abruptly disturbed by an unexpected proposal that arrived just as the first leaves of autumn began to paint the ground in hues of gold and amber. The proposal wasn't of a personal nature, but rather a professional opportunity that threatened to uproot the delicate balance I had started to establish in my new sanctuary. The offer came from an old colleague, Michael, who had ventured into a startup that was rapidly gaining traction in the tech world. He reached out to me one crisp morning, his voice crackling with excitement through the phone. "Hey, it's been a while. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time," Michael began, his tone upbeat. "Not at all, just enjoying the quiet of the morning." "What's up?" I replied, curious about the reason for his call after months of silence. I'll cut to the chase. "I'm working on something big, something that could change the game for us. I remember your brilliant work back in the day, and frankly, I could use your expertise," Michael said, his words rushing out in a torrent of enthusiasm. I was taken aback, flattered, but hesitant. "I'm not sure, Michael. I've moved on from that life. What you're asking could mean diving back into a world I left behind." I know, and I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe you could make a real difference. We've secured significant funding, but there's a catch. The investors want you on board as a condition of the deal. Your reputation precedes you," he explained, the earnestness in his voice hard to ignore. The proposition was enticing, a chance to return to my professional roots with the potential for substantial financial rewards. Yet, it also meant leaving my cottage, my project of self-renewal, and potentially disrupting the tranquility I had fought so hard to find. "Michael, I need to think about this. It's not just a job offer. It's asking me to change my entire lifestyle again," I said, the conflict evident in my voice. "I understand, completely. Take your time, but remember, this could be the comeback of a lifetime for you. Let's meet up, talk it over. Lunch, my treat, at that place you love downtown." Michael proposed, hopeful. After we hung up, I found myself walking through the cottage, each step echoing the turmoil within. The walls that had begun to feel like home now seemed to close in on me, as if urging me to make a decision. The next day, I met Michael for lunch, the familiar hustle of the city a stark contrast to the quiet I had grown accustomed to. Over plates of exquisite food, Michael laid out the vision for the startup, the role he envisioned for me, and the impact it could have on our futures. It's not just about the money or the success. It's about building something that matters, with people who matter to you, Michael said, his gaze steady, compelling. And if I said yes, what then? I approved my life again, for a chance at something that might not even work out. I countered, the weight of the decision heavy on my shoulders. Then you take a leap of faith, with a team that believes in you, in a project that could redefine your legacy. Isn't it worth the risk? He replied, his question hanging in the air between us. The deal, as it stood, was more than a business proposition. It was a crossroads, a choice between the comfort of my current life and the allure of potential greatness. As I looked across the table at Michael, I realized that the decision was not just about choosing a job. It was about deciding who I wanted to be. I'll need some time to think about it, I finally said, my mind a whirlwind of possibilities and fears. Of course, take all the time you need. Just remember, opportunities like this don't come around often. We need you, but more importantly, I think you need this too, Michael concluded, leaving me with a lot to ponder as we parted ways. The deal was on the table, a beacon of what could be, but at what cost? As I returned to my cottage, the decision loomed over me, a defining moment that would undoubtedly shape the chapters to come. In the days that followed my meeting with Michael, I found myself at a standstill, caught between the allure of a professional resurgence and the tranquil life I had begun to build in my cottage. The decision weighed heavily on me, casting long shadows over the bright, hopeful plans I had for my new home. It was during a late afternoon, while I was lost in thought in the garden, that my neighbor Tom found me. "You've been looking more troubled than usual. Everything all right?" Tom asked, his voice laced with genuine concern as he leaned on the fence that separated our properties. I sighed, the burden of my decision suddenly feeling shareable with the presence of a friend. It's a job offer, a good one. It could mean a lot for me professionally, but it would take me away from here, from all of this. I gestured around at the garden, the cottage, the embodiment of my journey towards healing. Tom nodded, understanding the gravity of my words. "Sounds like you're at a crossroads. What does your heart tell you?" "That's just it, Tom. My heart is torn. Part of me craves the challenge, the recognition. But another part of me wonders if I'm just chasing after ghosts of my past life, trying to prove something that doesn't need proving anymore," I confessed, the words tasting of raw truth. "Maybe it's not about going back or proving anything. Maybe it's about taking what you've learned here, the growth, the peace, and bringing that into whatever comes next. Restoration isn't just about fixing up an old house. It's about restoring yourself, too." "Sounds to me like you've done both," Tom said, his voice soft but firm, like the gentle push I needed. His words resonated with me, echoing long after our conversation had shifted to lighter topics. That night, I found myself walking through the cottage, touching the walls, feeling the texture of the wood, each brushstroke a memory, a step on the path to rediscovery. The next morning, I called Michael, my decision clear in my mind. "Michael, I've thought about it, and I'm in. But on one condition," I started, my voice steady with newfound resolve. "Oh? And what's that?" Michael's curiosity was palpable, even through the phone. "I do this my way. I bring the peace, the balance I've found here, with me. I won't lose myself in the work again. If we're going to do this, we do it in a way that's sustainable, not just for the business, but for us, for our lives outside of it," I stated, each word a commitment to the future I wanted to build. There was a pause on the other end, a moment of silence that stretched between us, charged with the potential of what was to come. "Deal. I wouldn't want it any other way," Michael finally replied, his voice echoing the respect and understanding that had always underpinned our partnership. With that agreement, a new chapter began, not just for my career, but for my life. The restoration of the cottage was complete, but the restoration of my soul, my purpose, was an ongoing journey, one that I now knew how to navigate with balance and grace. As I set about preparing for this new venture, integrating the lessons of the past months into my plans, I realized that restoration was not about returning to a former state, but about evolving, improving, and embracing the future with open arms and a restored heart. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity as I began to integrate my new professional commitments with the tranquil life I had vowed to maintain. It was a delicate balancing act, one that required constant vigilance and adjustment. Amidst this flurry of changes, an unexpected confession turned my world upside down, challenging the very foundations of my newfound balance. It was a late evening, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the cottage. I was in the midst of reviewing documents for the upcoming project when a knock on the door broke my concentration. Expecting Tom or perhaps a delivery, I was surprised to find Anna, a friend and former colleague, standing on my doorstep, her eyes reflecting a turmoil that mirrored my own internal storms from weeks past. "Anna, what a surprise." Come in," I greeted her, stepping aside to allow her into the warmth of the cottage. "Thank you. I hope I'm not intruding. I know we haven't spoken much since you left the city, but I didn't know where else to go," Anna began, her voice tinged with a vulnerability I had seldom seen in her. "Of course, you're not intruding. What's going on? Is everything all right?" I asked, concern lacing my words as we settled into the living room, the comforting crackle of the fireplace filling the silence between us. Anna took a deep breath before speaking. "It's about the project, the one you and Michael are working on. There's something you should know, something I've kept to myself for too long." I leaned forward, sensing the gravity of what she was about to reveal. "What is it, Anna?" She hesitated, then, with a resolve that seemed to gather within her, she continued, "The funding, it's not as secure as Michael has led you to believe. There are conditions, ones that could compromise the integrity of the project, of everything you're hoping to build." I felt a chill run down my spine, the warmth of the fire doing little to dispel the cold dread that settled in my stomach. "Are you saying the project is at risk? That Michael might be compromising?" "Not intentionally, no. But he's under a lot of pressure, and I fear he's not seeing things clearly. He might be making concessions that you wouldn't agree with, ones that could ultimately harm the project and everyone involved," Anna explained, her eyes meeting mine, a silent plea for understanding within them. The revelation was a blow, one that left me reeling. The trust I had placed in Michael, in the vision we had shared, now seemed misplaced. "Thank you for telling me, Anna. I had no idea. I'll need to speak with Michael, get to the bottom of this." Anna nodded, a weight seemingly lifted from her shoulders with her confession. "I didn't want to bring you this burden, but I couldn't stand by and watch everything you're working towards be jeopardized. You've always been about integrity, about doing things the right way. I knew you'd want to know." The conversation that followed was a mix of personal confessions and professional concerns, a cathartic release for both Anna and me. It was late when she left, the night enveloping the cottage in a blanket of stars. The next morning, I confronted Michael, armed with the knowledge Anna had provided. The discussion was tense, fraught with the strain of betrayed trust and the fear of a dream unraveling. "Michael, we need to talk about the funding, about the conditions we're agreeing to. Anna came to see me last night, and she's concerned. Frankly, so am I," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning within. Michael's reaction was a mix of defensiveness and guilt, a clear indication that Anna's confessions were grounded in truth. "I was going to tell you, I swear. It's just the pressure, the expectations. I thought I could handle it, negotiate a better deal in time." The conversation was a turning point, a moment of reckoning that tested the limits of our partnership and the project itself. It took hours of discussion, of hard truths and harder decisions, but in the end, we emerged with a renewed commitment to our original vision, to the integrity and values that had brought us together in the first place. Chapter 7: Confessions, was more than a revelation of secrets. It was a testament to the strength of honesty, of friendships, and of the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. It was a reminder that the path to restoration, both personal and professional, is often paved with unexpected challenges, but also with the opportunity for growth and reaffirmation of one's values and goals.